Hello class, welcome to the lesson today. In our coverage for this lesson, we're going to review what we've been learning all through since we started this program. Like we said from our last lesson, we'll be having this revision, we'll be answering any questions that could be a problem to you, and then showing you how questions are supposed to be set in physics and how to tackle them. So, we're just reviewing what we have been learning, and we'll be looking at questions that cover all the topics we have talked about, no matter how few they will be. The most important thing is to learn how to identify which kind of question is being asked and how we're going to answer such a question. So for Form 2 Physics, these are the topics to be covered. Magnetism, which we have covered. We talked about what magnets are, types of magnets, uses of magnets, their properties and all that. Measurements 2, we looked at two devices that are used for measurement, vernier caliper and micrometer, screw gauge. Then we did look at accuracy, what we mean by accuracy, and how to deal with what we call standard form, rounding off decimal points and all that. Then we look at moments over force, or turning effect over force. That is one of the effects of force on objects. And we have covered that. We covered that. We did some mathematical questions. We did look at equilibrium and center of gravity, how important center of gravity for moments and for balancing, and the conditions for equilibrium, and how to calculate equilibrium. We look at curved mirrors or curved surfaces, especially concave and convex mirrors, and what kind of images they produce, and how to do the calculations involving these kind of mirrors. We did look also at waves. We introduced the topic of waves 1. Waves 2 is supposed to be taught in Form 3 coverage. We introduced what waves are, the properties of waves, and what the wave equation is all about. Then we went to a specific type of wave called sound. Sound is a type of wave which we call a longitudinal wave. We saw its properties, its transmission, and what we mean by echo, and how echoes can be used to calculate the speed of sound in air. Then we did look at fluid flow, the types of fluid flow that we do have, and how to calculate what we call the equation of continuity. We also look at Bernoulli's principle in that same topic. And finally, we look at Hooke's law. Hooke's law is all about statement, the experiment to verify Hooke's law, and how to do the calculations that involve Hooke's law. This was basically our last coverage. So there's still one more topic that we're supposed to cover, magnetic effect of electric current. We shall cover that eventually. I just will encourage you to read ahead. But for now, we'll revise the other topics, and this is where we'll be having testing coming from in subsequent tests and exam. So, in physics, the theory questions, even the practical question, we have only these 5 types of questions. We have what we call the statement questions, where you are asked to state a law or a principle, or give a specific fact. And yet it's important to use words that are in the statement as it is, especially in the KLB physics textbook. We do what we call descriptive questions, where you're asked to describe mostly an experiment or a process, or give the reason why something happens. You're giving a description, almost like a short composition. Then you do what we call comparative questions. You're comparing one thing to its opposite and giving the difference. Okay? Then you have the numerical questions, which are basically calculation questions. These are mathematical questions. Here we say you need to identify what you've been given, identify the right formula to use, and apply it in your calculation. And then finally, we have the graphical questions, which basically have the x-axis and y-axis, variables on both axes. Most of the time, the constant, the variable that cannot be affected so much is on the x-axis, while the other is on the y-axis, unless otherwise stated. So these are the 5 types of questions we do have in physics. Understand, identify which question it is, and know how to work it out. So, let's start with the first one, the statement questions. And I've given 2 examples of questions here and how we give the answers. Like I've said, the statement questions, we give the answer as a fact, the way it is given in the textbook, preferably. So for example, state Hooke's law, and you state it as it is, you can start by saying it states that, or just start by giving the fact, the extension of a spring, or some would say helical spring, is directly proportional to the stretching force, provided the elastic limit is not exceeded. Most of these statement questions have a condition. Most of them. In this case, the condition is the elastic limit not being exceeded. So give the fact as it is. The more force you add on a spring, the more the extension is going to have. And if you remove the force, the spring goes back the way it was, except if the force has stretched the spring beyond what you call the elastic limit. So give it in few words in a statement in a factual kind of way, like that. Or state Bernoulli's principle. So this first question was from Hooke's law, the topic of Hooke's law. The second one is the topic of fluid flow. There are many things in the topics, but I'm just giving you bits and pieces. So in Bernoulli's principle, we say that in a streamlined flow, when the speed of a fluid increases, the pressure in the fluid decreases. When the speed of a fluid increases, the pressure of the fluid decreases because they are inversely proportional. And when the speed of the fluid decreases, the pressure increases. That's the opposite, the vice versa. So here we did give in our explanation in class, if you remember, we had a pipe like that, and we had a pipe here like this. And there's fluid flowing all through these pipes, which is of different cross-sectional areas. So at this point, being over a very large cross-sectional area, the speed is not as high. The pressure acting the fluid will be so high, leading to this liquid being displaced maybe to that height. While on the other side, because the cross-sectional area is narrower, it's smaller, the speed here will be very high. So the pressure acting here on the fluid will not be as high, so the displacement of the fluid will be to that point, or in this case, it will be to that point. That means the pressure here is low, while the pressure here acting on the fluid is high. So you can have all that, but just give the basic statement, the basic fact. This and this vary inversely, so that's how it will be, while if the cases change, it will be the reverse. That is statement, question. Sometimes statement question means giving a fact. For example, what is the condition for force? Let's say surface tension. There are only two conditions. That is temperature and impurities. That's a statement, it's a fact. So give it as it is. So if they say what breaks surface tension, it will be high temperature and increase in impurities, and vice versa. Statement always giving facts. Good. Let's go to the next one, which is a descriptive question. In descriptive question, you need to give the answer in form of a paragraph. A large paragraph or a small paragraph doesn't matter, but form of a paragraph. Most of the time in physics, you don't need more than two paragraphs. More than one. Maybe sometimes two, but mostly it is one. And then, as much as you give it in a paragraph, you describe it step by step. And then, you show it from your perspective, not exactly the way it is in the textbook. You kind of write the facts the way you have understood them. It will help with descriptive question if you can draw a diagram. Because a diagram means use less words to describe. But if you don't use a diagram, you have to use a lot of words, which is still okay. But a diagram will be very nice. If you are asked to illustrate, illustration means you're describing, but you must have a diagram or a flow chart or something like that. So for example, this question, describe an experiment showing how to determine the polarity of an unmarked magnet. Describe an experiment showing how to determine the polarity of an unmarked magnet. Now, this is from the topic of magnetism. We talk about the properties of magnets, and there are two. One is what we call polar property, and the other is what we call directional property. both of them, both those properties can be done experimentally, and you get to know the polarity. For example, if I do have this setup, so that's why I'm saying you may decide to draw, or maybe not to draw but give it in words, a complete stand, and you do have your magnet there, suspended. So what you do right here is that to prove this, you will need a complete stand, a string, and a magnet. You may draw. If you draw, you don't need to show all that, but if you are not drawing, you're writing as a statement, illustrate what you have, list what you have. But if you're drawing, because you'll be labeling this part, string, unmarked, magnet, complete, stand, or you can have stand, boss, clamp, and all that. Then you say, suspend this magnet and then let it come to rest. It will always rest while facing the north-south direction. So the way it's facing the north, if you know the north, that will be the north pole. When it's facing the south, if you know the south, that will be the south pole. Alternatively, bring a marked magnet. If this is the north pole, and you bring it here, and they attract, this is south. If they repel, you know that this is north. So you describe step by step, either drawing or by word, but it gives it eventually says which is north pole, which is south pole. And you've answered your question. Now in the second part, we'll go on to more of the other types of questions. See you there.